Hi, everyone. I'm Caroline Williams from Benefit Advisors Network, here to welcome you to our webinar. Today, we'll hear from our friend Darcy Mashad, who will talk about the recruitment crisis in Canada and what can be done about it. I just have a couple of items before we begin. This record, and we will share a link to the recording once it becomes available. That'll come from the BAN agency who invited you to today's webinar, and they will also follow up with the HRCI and SHRM activity codes after verifying your full attendance. Excuse me. Since this meeting is being viewed by hundreds of people across North America, all callers are on mute. Please post your questions in the Q&A feature and we'll work on getting those answered. With all that said, I'll hand things over to Darcy to get us started. Welcome, Darcy, and thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Carolyn. Thank you so much for having me. And as always, it's my pleasure to present on behalf of Benefit Advisors Network and Benefit Advisors Network Canada. It's obviously our webinar series has been going on for a while and with great success, and I'm looking forward to continuing that today. Our topic is going to be recruitment crisis in Canada. What can you do? I know many of you that are going to be on the call today are involved or at least privy to the recruitment process with your company. And you're probably fully aware of how difficult it is, both in the United States and Canada. So we're going to talk about some of the reasons for that, as well as some of the considerations and things you can do to tackle that going forward. Anytime now, my controls will start working. There you go. So your host for today. So of course, there's me. I'm Darcy. I'm the Vice President of HR Services for HR Covered. Joining me today will be my astute colleague, Tarheel. Tarheel is not just a pretty face. He is an educated HR professional. As you can see, he's a senior HR advisor, a certified human resource dog. He does have his master's in human resources. So I'm pleased. He's very opinionated and he's loud, but he's also opportunistic. So I can't tell you exactly when he's going to jump into the conversation. It can happen at any time. But when he feels like he has something to say, I'm sure he will jump right in. So, and of course, this content discussed in the webinar does not constitute legal advice. So knowing that, we will proceed. So I don't know why my controls are super slow today. The webinar outline, what we're going to be discussing today, there's lots of content to cover, even though it's only in the four topics. How do we get here? The causes of recruitment challenges in Canada, the necessary change in philosophies that employers must undertake to combat these issues, how to win the recruitment and retention battle. Now, we're not going to belabor on it, but you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, it popped up that the best recruitment strategy is retaining good employees. The big thing that recruiters and a lot of companies try to do, which is actually fallacy, is they try to separate their recruitment strategy from the retention strategy. Believe me when I tell you, they're one and the same. And if you're doing the latter part of that, the retention strategy, you're doing it really well, your recruitment strategy is taking care of itself, right? So something to keep in mind. And what to expect next, how to prepare. You'll see at the top, it says submit your questions for live Q&A at the end. We will have a live Q&A where you'll have the opportunity to ask any questions that you want to ask, not just listen to what I'm telling you. So by all means, submit them throughout the presentation, or just when we get to the live Q&A, feel free to ask Carolyn any questions you have, and I'll be happy to address them for you. So how did we get here? What was the cause of the recruitment crisis in Canada? And I can tell you it's not something, and this might surprise a few people when we break it down, but it's not single fold. Of course, there's a pandemic. I think everybody would jump at the opportunity to say, how do we get to this recruitment crisis piece? And they'll give you a whole bunch of reasons and they'll all be settled around the pandemic, but trust me, it is simply not that simple. Hear my dog in the background. The pandemic really only emphasized pre-existing trends. It did create new issues, there's no doubt about it, but what it really did is bring to the forefront these pre-existing trends that we were struggling with before COVID-19, and it also highlighted the inability or unwillingness for some employers to adapt. So we'll talk about this a little bit later, but it took the term work-life balance, which I've always deemed to be a tagline, and I've done webinars and been on panels about this before, but it made it real. People actually appreciate that term now. It's just not something you say at a party, if you will. So when we examine beyond the pandemic and we look at pre-existing trends, you have to remember, and you may or may not, if you were specifically into recruiting, you'll have a good feel on this. The recruiting challenge in Canada existed pre-COVID-19. This is not something that was new. We had a lack of skilled labor and talent already in Canada before the pandemic hit. A lot of this was leaving work. A lot of this was due to our, the baby boomers going to the next generation. The millennials, who used to be considered the people breaking into the workforce, are now a couple generations deep. So it's like the people that were the skilled talent, the people that were the knowledge and the backbones of a lot of companies, they're retiring. And just this is as recent stats as you can get recent stats. The 21 census that just came out states it's 1 in every 5 Canadians are going to be seniors right now. And recent studies show that if the workers that went into the pandemic at 55 and 64 at that age bracket, they have no intention of returning to work. There's lots of reasons for that. The pandemic itself and the fear of being sick or catching COVID obviously is one of them. But I think that a lot of people have taken that lesson, work-life balance, and said, I'm going to stop living to work. I'm 57, I'm 62, what have you. I have enough money to not work anymore. I'm going to start living my life. So this is just something that pre-existed. COVID just brought it to the forefront. Immigration is a big one, and I will beat my drum all day on this. I get so frustrated with our government, and I know it's every government, and Canada is actually better than most, but there is such a pool of labor around the world, qualified skilled labor, and we're very diligent in our processes to allow them to come here or for companies to seek them out. So it's always been a factor. Immigration has always been a struggle. But new rules, the immigration rules have always been a barrier, begging your pardon. But in 2020, when you started to see the effects of COVID shutting the border, then all of a sudden the limited immigration pool we had stopped. And quite frankly, even though immigration rules in Canada, the Canadian government came out last month and relaxed immigration rules, which is great. It's a good start. Nothing's improved. The pipe is still tight. There's nothing coming through the pipeline. So we're in this position where a issue that was created or was happening pre-COVID, which was our inability to immigrate at better levels, has now been personified, and now we're actually worse off than we were. And again, look at it. It's simple math. Our fertility rate in Canada is 1.5. That means there's 1.5 kids being born for every single person that's having a baby. Our rate of retirement in the next 20 years, or sorry, every single female. So some females won't have babies, so it all averages out. But our rate of retirement over the next 20 years is 3 to 1. So where are we getting our labor force from, right? If we're not growing our population within, then the only place we're going to get it is through immigration. So that's something that business owners and people that have that stigma about immigrants coming to Canada to work and taking Canadian jobs, they just need to get educated. Quite frankly, that's where it stands. Government aid. So this is a actual pandemic issue. There's a lot of things that did cause issues for recruitment during the pandemic. This is certainly something you can peg squarely. And whether it's right or wrong, there will be people on this webinar that would take a right side approach. There's people that are going to take a left side approach to that. It doesn't matter. It's more factual than not. There's enough stats that bear this out at this point, that in lower paying jobs, lower to medium paying jobs, the government aid that was being provided in Canada, which came earlier, specifically to our counterparts in the United States, it did come earlier than a lot of countries. And it was relatively generous relative to a lot of countries. There's not a lot of incentive to go to work and work minimum wage and work 40, 50 hours a week and drag your butt into the car into the middle of a pandemic when you could collect $2,000 a month to stay at home, right? So you have that, plus you have the stigma that this is creating. So if anybody here does claims management or disability management, the worst thing you can do is to leave somebody at home for any length of time because they get used to it. The idea of going back to work is difficult. So now, even though wages are being raised, the minimum wage is being raised, in part to combat this government aid issue that we caused ourselves, there's still workers out there that are willing to take less and stay on government aid because they don't want to go back to work. And that's the stigma that's created from just being at home. And it's nothing, it's human nature. It's what it is. But from a government point of view, from a labor market point of view, you would have thought that this would be something that they would have considered. So yes, we had a part. The pandemic did create some of this recruitment piece. And then of course, I'm seeing this every day, and so are my colleagues in HR Covered, talking to people on the phone about not being able to recruit, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what are you doing differently than what you were doing before? Well, nothing. Well, excuse me? Well, nothing. And I go, we're just trying to get people back to the office. I go, but it's not the same. Like, things have changed. We just went through 3 years of pandemic. People have turned to IT to survive COVID. They're looking that I still have people that are asking me when they ask me questions about recruitment that we're looking for, our number one, what are you looking for when you're recruiting for somebody? And they say, well, we're looking for personnel skills and, ability to communicate with people. And I go, really? Because half the world is remote right now. There's other skills you should be looking for. The world has changed. You just haven't. And this is, part of the recruitment problem is that people expected things to stay the same and they're acting like it's the same and it's not. So we are causing some of this ourselves. And we're definitely going to talk about this throughout this presentation for sure. Work-life balance. So this goes back to that tagline I was telling you about. I can't tell you, and this has been going on pre-COVID for me, by the way. I do a fair bit of presentations and things of that nature. And this has always been one of those things when we talk about recruitment and retention strategy and people talk about work-life balance. And you see it at the top of every list, work-life balance, all that kind of stuff. That's what millennials want. That's, what the older generations that are coming towards retirement and they want to be able to settle into retirement. They want that balance between going to work and actually not. And then all of a sudden, especially for younger generations, you throw some $5,000 at somebody and they're working 60 hours a week. It's a nice tagline. It's a nice concept. It's a nice idea until you give them something else that's tangible that they could take and they want right there and then. And then all of a sudden, the tagline, the work-life balance, gets thrown out the window. That's not the case anymore. So that's just not the case. People are taking this seriously. People are walking away from more money, good job security, great benefits, just for the opportunity to work remote or have flexibility or have everything that they've gained that the employers are now trying to take away from them. And you could take dispute with that comment that they never had it in the first place. It's not the employers to take away or the employees to keep. That was only temporary. Well, guess what? The genie's out of the bottle. I think that's how I like to do that segue, because if you look at the notes that I put on the left-hand side, you could call whatever you want the Great Resignation. You could say that that's frozen wages, that's discontent with your employer because they treated you like crap during COVID. It could be that people are getting called back to the office and they're just saying, screw this, I'm resigning. At the end of the day, you could call it whatever you want, but you're going to have to figure it out. This is where employees are at, right? Employees are here. This is a big deal for them. And when I say the genie out of the bottle thing, is that it's always been, put it this way, it's always great for an employer to say to an employee, you're going to be more productive at work. It's better social atmosphere at work, all of these different types of things. You can't work from home because you won't be productive. I can't trust you. We can't track your time, et cetera, et cetera. It's always easy to say, we don't know what this would look like, so it's not going to work. We've had a 3-year case study. We've had 3 years of employees working from home, not having to do the commute. The world went on, companies stayed open, everybody made money, right? So now employees are looking at all these CEOs that are coming out, the CEO of Apple and the dude from JP Morgan is very vocal about it, that you have to be in the office to be productive and all that kind of jazz. They're listening to these CEOs saying you have to come back into the office, and they're going, no, you can't tell us we're more productive. I know how productive I was at home. I used to commute an hour into GTA. I'm not from GTA, but I know people that are, and they're just refusing. They used to commute an hour one way and an hour another way. That's 10 hours a week of their life that they got back during the pandemic, and they're not about to give it up. So, and they can point to the fact that when they look at their numbers, when they look at their performance appraisals or whatever it is, with their matrix for being judged, that they're fine. They were just as productive and in some cases more productive than they were before. So why do you need them back in the office? Why do they have to be there? So we're certainly going to change it. We'll talk about that too. So the necessary change in philosophy. And then what I mean by change in philosophy, I mean, this isn't things like, this is the micro or the macro of it all. There's micro things for sure. There's things that we're going to discuss about things you can do from a recruiting perspective or an HR perspective that will, increase your odds to recruit better, to recruit faster, et cetera, et cetera. This is the macro. This is where employers just need to accept, to move on. If they're going to do anything, if they're going to fix this problem, they need to get their heads around this. So the first thing is that employees rock, right? Straight up. I'll tell when this whole thing was going on, I was running my own company at the time. And I had a lot of independent consultants and I had people I worked with, and they were struggling and all that kind of stuff. And they still had employers that were asking them to come out and do HR on site. They weren't at the point where everything was shut down, and they were scared, right? They were scared. They didn't want to do it, they needed to make a living. They knew I was hoping they would make a living so I can make a living. And it's a tough thing. And not only that, when you get into corporations and things like that, you're looking about companies that have been working the past 3 years. Not only have a lot of them not seen a raise or even a sniff of a promotion, because promotions weren't happening during COVID, there's a good deal of them where their wages were decreased because that became legal in a lot of jurisdictions across Canada. So, I get that a lot of businesses took hits. I get that some businesses closed down, but the vast majority of businesses didn't. They survived. And the people that are responsible for them surviving are their employees, flat out. They're looking for what they lost and what they should be gaining. Basically, they're looking for a thank you in a monetary kind of way, of course, right? So, and they deserve it. The leverage has changed. So this made me laugh. I commented on LinkedIn about this not that long ago and got a lot of good feedback. There was a recent CBC article, and it featured employers saying how they had to lower their standards when they're recruiting. That they used to recruit for this, and this is what they expected out of the recruitment class they got, and now they're accepting this. And I'm like, that attitude needs to change. Only in human resources, only in the most valuable resource you have is your people. Only in human resources would the laws of supply and demand apparently not work for you. In any other industry, if oil costs more, the price goes up because you need good oil. You don't go out and get crappy oil that's going to burn a hole in your engine. No, but HR people or companies as it may be, yeah, you know what? The price of employees has went up. Let's go get a crappy employee and hope they don't bring our company down tomorrow. That's their logic. It's flawed. It's just wrong. At the end of the day, supply and demand is simple. Less supply costs more. Employers are just going to have to get it through their head. What was a $30,000 a year ago is now a $35,000 a year job. Inflation just doesn't happen in the grocery store. It happens with HR too, and employers need to get their head around it. Now, I'm going to say this point because I'm the one facilitating this webinar, so I get to talk and everyone else listen. But the one thing that really ticked me off pre-COVID is these ads that you would see in the paper, $15 an hour, $18 an hour, $20 an hour for some, rank file job, must have a university diploma. Employers cause this mess themselves, in part, right? There is no job in Canada that pays $18 an hour that requires that person to have a university diploma. But that's what employers were asking for pre-COVID. Well, look at where you are now. And I'm an employer rep. I do HR for employers. I don't do it for employees. I do it for employers. And I would happily say that to any one of my clients. That's ridiculous. And now we're in a position where employees can turn right back at you and say, this is what I got, pay me. So, the fact that I've heard a lot of my clients and some business owners say that, employees are being a little bit greedy and unrealistic. It went both ways. That's the nature of leverage, if you will. So employers need to change their mindset. This is super important. This is a framework issue. This is about output rather than input. I did a webinar not that long ago on the idea of performance management in remote workplaces. And I could give you a list of business owners that I know and people managers that I know that will point to a person that's, on a Friday night is working at 6 o'clock to get all their work done. And then they'll chastise the person that left at 4 o'clock on the Friday and, saying they're not working hard enough. Look at this person over here. They're an A player. They're here working overtime at 6 o'clock. Did it ever occur to you that maybe that other person got the same amount of work done by 4 o'clock as that other person is taking till 6 o'clock to get done? And it's not a fact that they're loyal or they're diligent. They're just not really good at their job, right? We have to stop judging our employees by presence. We have to stop judging that we need to see the whites of their eyeballs, or they're not a good employee. They're not a loyal employer. We can't trust them. We need to start focusing on the things that are going to give you a great working environment, make you a good employee, make a good hire that you retain and increase your ROI. You start to measure results. Your employees reaching their goals, the company reaching their goals. It seems simple, but for whatever reason, this whole call people back to work thing is kind of contrary to that. And that's part of the reason for it, is people are focusing on the input rather than the output. And then the last thing, and this has been, again, this is a pre-pandemic thing. This isn't new. It's just been personified with the other factors that have come out of the pandemic and are still sticking around. The new generation of worker stays at a job for average 3 years. A recent stat just came out. This stat is 2021, so it's relatively recent. Well, it is recent. Nothing happens less than a year away. 95%, this is actually shocking to me. 95% of employees said they would consistently put their own interests in front of those of their employer. Do you remember the day, like I wouldn't say my dad's day, but certainly my grandfather's day, and grandmother and or my mom and my grandmother at that as well, where the idea that if the boss asks you to do something, of course you're going to jump. If they ask you to come in on a Saturday, you were going to be there on a Saturday. If you worked at a company, your goal was to work there for the next 20 years, and that was important to you. You would take less money, you would take less benefits if I knew that I had a job at the same place 10 years from now. That's not something companies are still offering this. Like if you look at Indeed and you look at all these other job ad places, companies are still offering this idea that job security exists. They're still offering this idea that job security is desirable. It's like you got to get out of your old space frame pates. You know, it just doesn't work. It's not even something that employees value. They don't want it. They don't want job security. They want to travel. They want to go. And when I mean travel, I mean go from job to job. So you have to start thinking about what it is that employees want and not what you want to give or what you thought was valuable in the first place. Employers need to adapt, right? So these are the macro philosophies that employers need to adopt to be able to make the micro changes that need to be made to win the recruitment and retention war. Stubborn employers will lose. That's simple. A key factor to winning the war for talent is acknowledging that working from home and hybrid work environments are here to stay, that they work. Employees want flexibility. Yes, they want to be compensated for the 3 years that they've lost. They want to be compensated for the 3 years of walking into a workplace in the middle of a pandemic with masks on and being, and having to come home to their kids and wondering if they're bringing COVID back to the kids. They want to be compensated for that. But make no mistake that in that time, they also realize the value of working from home, and they're not willing to suit up every day, drive an hour to work, and then just to sit on a Zoom meeting, the same Zoom meeting you would sit at home in an empty office building. It makes no sense, right? It just doesn't make any sense. So, and I read an amazing article just this past week in preparation. If anybody who's on this webinar that knows me, they know I start working on this a long time in advance, just for the knowledge piece of it all. It's a good thing. But I read an amazing article just last week, and it talked about executive employee disconnect. And this was predominant in the United States. It's definitely in Canada. It's the same thing. Canada's numbers were a little bit easier than the United States, but in the United States, it definitely was a driving factor. But this disconnect between executives, management, CEOs, chief executive officer, what have you, they want their employees back at work. Employees don't. 3 out of every 4 executives want people to come back on some type of hybrid model or Python model where it's 3 to 5 days a week. Nearly 7 out of 10 employees are saying, we don't want to do that. Flat out, we don't want to do that. 50% of executives, 1 out of every 2, want people to come back to work full-time, 5 days a week, no working from home, none of that. 80%, 8 of every 10 employees. If you're trying to recruit people and you're going to have a work from the office environment, and you're telling me that of the 100 employees standing in that room, that only 20 of them are available to you, and you're saying you're meaningfully trying to tackle the recruitment challenge, you're crazy. You're delusional, right? You're drinking too much Kool-Aid, and the Kool-Aid don't taste good. So it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So it's like I say, how can employers be so obtuse? This is where you get into I find this personally interesting. This is where you get into the trying to get, but when you're trying to create recruitment strategies for companies and clients, this is, or your own company for that matter, this is what you have to know exists so you can get over it. You have to be able to know what the problem is so you can solve it. So old school thinking, that's what it is. Some of that you're not going to be able to change. Some of that you might be able to dumb down a little bit and make it not as bad. But at the end of the day, if you have one of those CEOs or a board that leads you or whomever it is that just has that I got to see the whites of their eyeballs attitude, there's not too much you're going to do about it. The second one's interesting, and this is a very big deal in the States, especially from what I've researched, the important symbolic step of post-pandemic life. So you see all this push and pull about people that are making the pandemic a big deal and then people that are not. And that goes to a nasty stage. It goes to an unproductive stage of conspiracy theorists versus people that are all about safety and all that kind of stuff. And we see that we're starting to see that in Canada with the Liberals and the NDP versus the Conservative relative to the current president of the United States, Joe Biden, and Donald Trump. You see that divide, and now all of a sudden again, surprise, surprise, this is the call back to work has become political. People are looking at this as, we got to get back to work. We got to get back into our offices. We got to get back into our factories. We beat COVID. That's how they're looking at it. And it can't, and anybody who knows me really well or decent knows that when I say, when you talk about HR, it's never about emotion. You take emotion out of it, right? This is about, how do I recruit? And taking a symbolic step to say we need to get you back to work is not going to help you at all. And this is one that I found really, really interesting. They're not enjoying the same experience as employees. So consider this. If you're an executive and you're making $400,000 a year, are you looking after your own kids? Probably not. Are you cleaning your own house? Probably not, right? These people that are working from home right now and saving money on daycare and being able to spend time with their kids and actually being able to care for their kids in a manner in which they would like, or you know what, maybe take their hour break that they would have to go down, Yonge Street in Toronto to take. Now they can clean their house because they actually have time to do that. CEOs making $400,000 a year or whatever they're making, they don't have to clean their own house. They pay somebody to clean their own house. They don't have to look after their own kids. They pay somebody to look after their own kids. They don't appreciate the same experience that people that are the rank and file folks that are working from home, the benefits we get from working from home far outweigh the benefits that a CEO would get, not to mention the setup. CEOs are, when they walk into an office, they're the go-to. Everybody wants to go to them, right? When you're online, that can be, I can imagine how that would be overwhelming. I can speak from experience. It can be overwhelming. So, CEOs have office doors. They have beautiful desks with couches and bar fridges in their office and all that kind of stuff. Why wouldn't you want to go back to that? And you could control the entry because there's only one point, that door is sitting in front of you. So, there's another reason, and a good reason, psychological at that, but a good reason why executives are thinking this way. Then, of course, there's the cultural mythology. So this is about the whole is more important than the individual. This is about, if we're in a group setting, we will be better, faster, more efficient, as opposed to if you're an individual, then you're not. And that's just, I get it. I throw it out the window because technology is advanced so far by that. If you have that cultural mythology, that means you haven't adapted. And to me, that's something that can be changed if you're dealing with that CEO, if you're dealing with that board of control, whomever it is, that's something that can be changed, because that's just a little bit of awareness and education, right? I love this quote, so I decided to put it up as his own point. The people that want this whole executive employee disconnect, I've heard so many times from executives about the importance of whiteboarding, but that sentiment always is coming from the person who is controlling the pen in the whiteboard session. Love it. How many words or how many awesome quotes do I need to write down to say the word control? And take it away. Like, there's no disputing this. Human nature, it is in human nature that people want control. Everybody, even little kids, my kids, they want control every day. Damn it, if they're going to get it. But everybody wants control. So if you're a CEO and you have control, you're working in an environment where everybody's everywhere. You can't see what they're doing. You can only see their output. Their output's good. That's not good enough for you. You got to have them in there. You got to have them whiteboarding. You're going to get better ideas. Not the case, right? Though you have to appreciate these are the battles that you have to win, but these are the things that CEOs and companies need to overcome to be able to win the recruitment war. Companies need to embrace modern technology. And I think most companies have done a really good job of doing that. But there's other things that make modern technology in the recruitment crisis we're going through a win-win. So one of the big things, and it's a little bit left unspoken right now because it's been overshadowed by COVID a little bit, but in certain areas, it's kind of come out even harder, is diversity, equity, inclusion, race and equality. Who's getting the promotions? Why are they getting the promotions? Things like that. When you go into the office and it's the old white man's club and you happen to get in the individual, or you happen to get in the elevator and there's a CEO, the old white man, and you're in there talking to them. And then 3 weeks from now, a new job comes up, a promotion, and you're the lucky one who gets it. People got to start to question, why is that happening? Is that systemic? Yeah, it is. Of course it is. This levels the playing field. That's what virtual technology and virtual collaboration does. It gives everybody a chance. And for lower income workers who can't necessarily afford to drive into Vancouver or the GTA or wherever it is in these high priced markets where you live in Canada, this is awesome. Like, it gives people an opportunity to work from home, to look after their kids. It promotes fairness in the workplace. It gives everybody a shot, right? It gives a fair shot. It puts blinders on who's Black, on who's white, on who's Muslim to a certain extent, because it's that you're not seeing that every day. It's not your predetermining factor. And it also puts blinders on some type of, financial or social inequalities that we see in the workplace every day. It's a fiduciary benefit, which is often overlooked. And then also promotes social connection on one's own terms. I'm sorry, I hate small talk. I just do. If you put me in an office and you run into me in the lunchroom, I'm going to do everything I can to avoid you. I don't want to be in there with you. I'm in a setting I'm not comfortable with. I just want to get out. I don't like small talk. When I'm online with someone, it doesn't bother me. It just doesn't. I'm in my office. I'm chilled out. I'm drinking a cup of coffee or whatever it is I'm drinking, depending on what time of day it is. And it just doesn't bother me. And that social interaction on your own terms, in your own setting, you can press the I gotta leave button at any point. You can turn off your camera. It's when people say you need to be in the office for social interaction, they're missing the other flip of the coin, right? They're the other side of the coin. So just something else to consider. And then, of course, from a recruitment perspective, and for the love of me, I don't know why people are so lost in this. It widens your net of qualified skilled workers to choose from, right? Like I don't get why, when you're looking at trying to get more workers and recruit, and you say, okay, we're only going to recruit from our back door. Here's our bricks and mortar office. We have to recruit somebody that's within 50 kilometers from here, or else they're not going to want to drive in every day, right? Why would you limit yourself to having to recruit, or have somebody, this person, you're doing business in Toronto or Montreal, and this person in Calgary or Vancouver is a perfect fit for our company. We want them. We'll pay them whatever you want. By the way, you have to jump on a plane, move your whole family to Toronto, because we work in the office. It's bricks and mortar. Why would you do that? Like, it just, I don't, that's something I just don't understand in the least. And then, of course, just change the way you recruit, right? So, when you talk about changing things and changing your office and your workplace settings and stuff like that, that's great. But you also have to change how you're recruiting people, because people have changed, processes have changed, the workplace has changed. You just can't go out there, put an ad up on Indeed in a tough job market, throw a big number under there in a price, put a couple sentences about how great your company is, and say, pick me, right? Because people are leaving. When people leave their jobs now, if you're high skilled labor and they put their resume out there or send it to a header or whatever, within 4 or 5 days, they're going to have 3 or 4 great job offers from companies who've only seen their resume. They don't even want to interview them. They just want to hire them, and they're fully happy and willing to pay them, right? So a couple of things you have to recall about your recruitment process. One, you need to streamline your process, of course. If there's unnecessary parts of it, things that can go faster, quicker, better, that's a good idea. And you need to keep it engaging. And of course, shortening things typically gives you more of the opportunity for engagement, but it's really important that you consider that when you're doing when you're reviewing your recruitment process. Going after the passive job seekers. This is a big one. 70% of job seekers out there, even though there's a lot of people that are wanting to leave, that's because they're getting these surveys. These surveys that say, if you were offered another job tomorrow, or if you could, would you leave your job tomorrow? And then 70% say, absolutely 100%, I would leave my job tomorrow. But then only 30% of them are actually physically looking. There's people out there that are good at their job, they're loyal to their job, but are not looking. If you went after them, if you put the job out in front of them, if you put the feelers in front of them, they're going to bite. So it's not good enough just to do the ad. You actually have to physically recruit. And more companies are seeing this. Ironically enough, when you go and you see the ad companies, you're seeing that a lot of these ads that are coming out are actually for recruiters, not for people that they're hiring. They're hiring professional recruiters to go after this passive job seeker market. And then, of course, respond to job seekers and what they want. And that goes back to stop offering them job security and better family benefits and all that kind of stuff. Offer them what they want, talk on their terms. And, the one thing that I do like, it's about shifting. I started reading into a book, shift your organization from a business to a brand. So like, what does that mean to you? It's like, this is our business, this is what we do. This is how much money you can make. This is the opportunity for promotion, et cetera, et cetera. But what's your vision? What's your position on DEI? What's your position on the environment? It's about making something emotional. It's about building that emotional connection first. And this Michelle woman, I can't pronounce her last name, so I'm not going to try. She wrote this book, and it's actually, she's taken the idea of how we sell to customers and said, why can't we sell to employees or candidates exact same way? Most people buy on an emotional connection first. They justify their decision after they've made the emotional decision. So why in our recruiting position, why in our recruiting processes are we trying to justify the reason for them working for us? Sell them on the brand, sell them on the passion, sell them on the vision of the company, get them in love with you, get them in love with the company, give them in love with the opportunity, get them in love with what you're doing, and then let's talk numbers, right? So it's just a different way of looking at it, which is going to be critical to winning the war on talent. A couple of other things. It's not all about working from home and all that kind of stuff. There's definitely other things that you need to be considering. So we're just going to go through them quick because we're making good time, but I want to leave time for questions if there are any. So the other things that you have to be cognizant of when you're doing the proverbial war for talent is culture. Like I said it earlier, that you always see these things at the top of the list whenever you see, what's most important to you, like work-life balance, job satisfaction, blah, 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 blah. But no one ever believes it. Things have changed, right? So things have become more legit. Things have become more meaningful to people. It's not just about money and benefits anymore. The top 3 significant drivers for employee satisfaction are job satisfaction, purpose, right? It's always been around there. It's firmly at number 1 in almost any poll you're going to do. High quality senior leadership, which I think, in my opinion, I think that's a negative and a positive. I think that's part of working online. The leadership is not always great, and that's not always the fault of leadership. This is a new world we're living in, and people have had to adapt. And then career opportunities. And again, make no doubt about it, there are people out there, especially younger people, who have been stagnant for the last 3 years, and they had a career plan when they came out of school, or they had a career, 5-year, 10-year, 3-year plan, whatever it is. They're not meeting their plan. They're not happy about it. So you better make sure that that's part of whatever recruitment and retention, program you got going on. Social issues, big, big, big. Diversity, DEI, social responsibility, corporate responsibility. This is about your brand. This goes back to the last point I was making in the last slide. This is about the kind of company you are, not what you are, right? This is about what you represent, not what you sell. This is about who you are, not what you make, right? So these are the things that, especially in this generation of social awareness, where anybody can jump on social media, say whatever the hell they want, almost without recourse, that there's another flip side to that. People are looking for the good. They see the negativity, it's out there every day. They're looking for the good. They see, they see minorities getting beat up in the street, right? Let's call it what it is. Now, all of a sudden, their attention to DEI, which should have always been there, is heightened, right? They see companies firing, like I don't want to say this company, that's a London company that just arbitrarily via email fired a whole bunch of people. I think it was a gym company. I forget what it was. Could have been, but they see these gym companies firing all these people with an email, and they're like, that's not right. They don't want to work for companies like that. You have to sell yourself as the kind of company they want to work for. And that is a critical aspect of the war for talent. Again, we've talked about this a few times. Money, even though it's not at the top of the proverbial list, let's call it spade, or let's call it what it is. It's always at the top of the proverbial list. There's going to be a lot of people that will work for less, but they're not going to work for a lot less. So you have to appreciate it's a supply and demand market. Compensation has been stale for 3 years. I know you haven't been making a lot of money because it's COVID, and for some companies that's really hurt them. But at the end of the day, you're going to start. And when you start, you have to make sure that your employees get what they need, or you're not going to be able to get employees. Not only not going to be able to get employees, you're going to lose the ones you have. Again, 3 years. Loyalty is not something that's in the window. 95% of employees are making decisions that are right for them. This idea that somehow you could put a pinball machine or a dart table or a dartboard, begging your pardon, dart table, that'd be interesting, in your office building, and think that, hey, I got company culture, they're going to stay. And it's not happening anymore. So you have to try harder, work harder. And beware where we are. We're in the middle of an ever-ending pandemic, it seems. And I want to say the middle. I actually probably should have been wise and optimistic to put the end or nearing the end. Your primary concern, and this is a big deal, by the way, there's a lot of studies that show this, more so during the pandemic, but I think you're seeing it coming out for different reasons. Employees want to know that their employers are at least cognizant of what they're going through. They want to know that, coming into the office, even after being recalled, and even after the Prime Minister in Canada and the President of the United States declaring everything safe, that people are still getting, COVID in record numbers. They want to know that their employer cares, that they're just not a dollar sign or a number, in their spreadsheets. So, that's important to be that caring employer, and that's part of your brand, that's part of your culture. And of course, listen to your employees. I'll say it this way and say it just to say once. If 80% of your employees are saying they don't want to come back to the office and you're telling your employees to come back to the office, good luck recruiting. There's just it's a zero sum game. I can't try to justify that position. If you're not wanting to listen to your employees, why would your employees want to work for you? It's that simple. So what to expect and how to prepare. This is the last slide before we do a little PR and get to the questions. So we're right on track, which is terrific. What to expect. I hate to be the bringer of doom and gloom. This is a lot based on my research and then a lot of me doing HR for 25 years, understanding the way market trends work when it comes to HR and recruitment, and telling you right now, this isn't going to get better. Those things that we were talking about, immigration and the aging workforce and stuff like that, that's not going anywhere. The talent pool is decreasing. So regardless of whether the pandemic is here or not, we were going to be in some version of a recruitment war as we sit here today talking about post-pandemic recruitment. It was always going to happen. When you look at the post-pandemic and look at it specifically from that point of view, employers are now it's only now, like it's been going on piecemeal for a while, but some of these big companies are only now, not for logistics reasons, they're only now starting to call employees back to work. So you are now only starting to see the beginning of the great resignation, as you would call it, the people that are like, you're gonna call me back to work, I'm not gonna do it. And then what's going to happen is you're going to have employees that bounce around from company to company, and they're going to look for the right fit, right? And because there's lots of suitors, they can do that. So you should expect that employees, again, our labor force is going down, our pool of people that we can select from is much less, but you should expect from employees that they will be far more selective, that they will bounce around, that they are going to say, if I don't get things my way, that I'm going to go somewhere else. So don't expect it to get better. As a matter of fact, I expect it to get fully worse, and I expect it to be this way for at least 2 to 4 years, 2 years minimum. Like this market correction can't happen in 2 years, and inflation won't help it either. So, but that's a side. I won't go there. I'm not a numbers guy. Remote workers. So let's talk about how to prepare. Okay, I gave you the one doom and gloom statement. Let's talk about 4 ways you can prepare. So the first one is remote workers. There's been opportunities that have come out of this pandemic. Some people have chosen to take advantage of them. Some people have kept their eyes shut. Here's one where it is clearly an opportunity. You are seeing a lot of companies, including my own company, HR Covered, or the company I work with, HR Covered, where remote workers are a thing, right? It's like, why are you recruiting in your own backyard? Why are you saying you have to live 50 kilometers and then drag your butt into this office building to do work that you could actually do when you're in Mexico, or you're in Spain, or you're in Alberta versus Ontario, or you're in any parts of the States? But we're doing an advertisement right now for 2 HR consultants that we're looking to bring on for HR Covered. And I received a personal email from a colleague in Buffalo, United States, who is looking to apply for the job and wanting to know if that's an issue, that she's from the United States. Go to your professional designation, see if they'll recognize it in Canada, or go to our professional designation or organization, see if they'll recognize your designation in Canada. If that's a yes, apply. She got a yes, just received her application right before this webinar started. I don't need somebody that lives 10 blocks away to come into my office. I'll take the best qualified candidate from wherever I can find them. And that's how you start to prepare. There's a part 2 to that, and that's contingent workers. That's me before I came here. And even me when I first started in HR Covered, the independent contractor, the consultants, the freelance people. Why are they good? Because one, they save money. Because let's talk about the employee that you pay $20 an hour to, then $2 extra an hour for benefits, then $2 extra an hour for stat holidays and vacation time, then their computer, then the bricks and mortar to have them. Independent consultants have none of that. This is what you pay them. This is what they cost. You get your outcomes. Moreover, there's no termination obligations. You can make an independent contractor agreement based on a project. You can make it on a 3-month time period. It's easy. It's cheap. And as you can see here, 32% of organizations are replacing some of their full-time employees with contingent workers as a cost savings measure. There's no way around, like, out of this, when you can't get a solution, when you can't find just one solution, it's not that you got to stop recruiting. You're still going to recruit. It's not that you're going to stop immigrating people. We're still going to immigrate, right? But the fact of the matter is that we don't need to have immigrants in Canada to do the work. We do for our economy. There's no way around that. But for, John or Jill, business owner, remote workers will do it. Contingent workers will do it. You could still work on immigration. You could still work on, effective recruitment. But these are things that you must be doing parallel, running aside one another. This is a little bit more HRE. Separation of skills and rules. So if you look at what a role is, and basically, I put it up there. A role is a group of unrelated skills that somebody that was bored in a corner office put together and said, let's put all these unrelated skills together and let's call them this. And that's what we're going to hire for. And then 5-10 years later, HR people and business owners are still out there looking for this group of unrelated skills for a job that was created 10 years ago, which may have different skill sets, all entirely required, or better skill sets required. The one thing that's come out of this entire thing is that this is an opportunity to blow it up. This is like you break down the jobs as they were, look at the skill sets, hire for skill sets and not for roles, right? And break them down, and then you rebuild them. You're basically the long, like to make a very long explanation later, I already did it, but to make my long explanation and summarize it, the war on talent is about talent management. Stop hiring the position and start hiring the skill, start hiring the talent, make the talent work. It's not about fitting a square peg in a square hole all the time. Sometimes it's about getting an employee who has an abundance of different types of skill sets and talents, and then customizing the hole that you're going to put them into, customizing the position. And that goes to my last point. If it ever saw, okay, there we go. Growth opportunities. We've already talked about that employees want that. We've already talked about that employees are looking for growth opportunities in the workplace, but coming out of the pandemic, they're not necessarily readily there. Think about what we just talked about. Think about going out and looking for the new skills that are going to work in today. And I'm not talking about personal skills or conflict management skills, people in the same office arguing and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about flexibility, adaptability, creativity, resilience, all these things that got your company and us through the pandemic are the skill set that you should be looking for. Fit them together, create a position, give that growth opportunity a chance. That's what you're looking for. And make your internal opportunities visible to your remote workforce, right? This isn't just about, okay, we're going to talent management somebody and we're going to success plan. Competition is great, right? We're hiring, we're going to bring an HR consultant on our team. And I can tell you right now, any one of my consultants on my team are worthy of the position. They're all phenomenal. And I'm not actively pursuing competition, but that's natural. And, I want them to excel, all of them. And, it's just, these are the things, get it out there, give people a shot at something. That's what people want. They want purpose. The one thing we can't do going forward is what we did before, which is nothing. If you're not doing anything different, then you've done nothing. And that's not how you're going to win a war. That's not how you're going to win a battle in recruitment, right? So thank you for that. If you give me 2 minutes just to indulge, just want to talk about HR covered really quickly, and it literally will be 2 minutes, and then we'll break the questions. We are everything HR. There's nothing we don't do. Our compliance products are great. They're value orientated, so they're great for small and medium-sized businesses who retire it. We have health and safety. We have health and safety professionals. We do health and safety audits. We can do industrial health and safety as well when required and when needed. We do everything in the employee life cycle, from recruitment to onboarding, all the way through to discipline and terminations. There's nothing we don't do there. And then, of course, HR strategy. And HR strategy is about succession planning. It's about, your recruitment strategy to fill, your goals from a business perspective. It's about building ROI. At the end of the day, that's going to be our new vision, is how do we get these small and medium-sized businesses to have an HR company that works with them to increase ROI. It's a great vision by our CEO. We're all on board. So excited to start. Now, when it comes to recruitment general, this is a brand new product we just rolled out, and I'm just going to leave it up here for 2 seconds, and then we're questions. Okay, I promise. But we just rolled out a new recruitment model. So we talk about getting the recruitment challenge. We talk about winning that war. You got to check this out. Okay. This obviously is going to be shared with everybody. There's the link, either copy and paste it, or it might allow you to click on it. But this is an opportunity for you to get free compensation data for your industry and your next hire. That's amazing by itself. It's worth a little bit of time that it's going to take to go. But it's something that everybody should be considering, especially given the position we are in from a recruitment and retention point of view. Yeah, that's our CEO, Matt Telford, great guy, terrific vision. We're all aligned and riding the same ship. That's it. So, thank you everybody for, hey, there's Targo. He was amazingly quiet. He's under my desk right now. He's just living the dog dream. So yeah, but thank you everybody for participating in the webinar, or at least listening. I hope you had a few takeaways that, you can go back to your company or, use personally. I'm happy to answer any questions. And if there's not questions now, that's fine. There's my email address, my phone number. If you ask any of my colleagues, if you try to call me, you're going to have a hard time getting me. But certainly if you email me, I will try to be as attentive as I can. If there's a question that you don't ask now, by all means, just follow up via email. I'd be happy to answer for you.
Thank you so much, Darcy. I just love listening to your passion on this topic and just your directness. I just love it. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your expertise today. And I don't see any questions coming through. So I guess we will let everyone go. Thank you everyone for being here today and for taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us. Thanks so much again, Darcy. Everyone have a good day and enjoy the rest of your week.
Take care.
Bye-bye.